It's around about this point that I think I might actually start to get some pushback if anyone ever listens to this, because I'm going to start criticizing things that are seen as beyond criticism, especially for someone who looks like me. Not because I'm not entitled to an opinion, but because my opinion can be easily dismissed as hateful prejudice. Not because it is, but because people can then feel self righteous about ignoring it. So here is my contention: feminism is not about equality, it is about female empowerment. Now, you may argue that it's empowerment towards equality, and yes, I will concede that point. However, equality is not the ultimate goal. Female empowerment is. Feminism is one sided and selective about equality, and selective equality is not equality. It's privilege. It's a superior position. If you only care about equality when women and girls are lagging behind in some metric, but you don't care when boys and men are lagging behind, then you don't care about equality. You're only using it as a shield from criticism. It's around about now that I think some women are starting to think that I might be a misogynist. I'm not. I don't hate women. I love women. Some of my favorite people are women. I'm not even anti feminist, I'm just not a feminist. I'm an egalitarian. Now, some might clap back and say being egalitarian just means that I'm afraid to say that I'm a feminist. But my whole argument is that they're not the same thing. As an egalitarian, I believe all human beings are equal in value as a human being. It doesn't matter what sex you are, or your race, ethnicity, religion, orientation, age, etc. A newborn baby is already a full human being. We are all equal in value as human beings and equally valid. There's no such thing as a trans exclusionary radical egalitarian. You can't be egalitarian and exclude anyone. You cannot make exceptions. However, we are not equal in capacity. Men are typically physically stronger than women. This is not a value judgment, but a biological fact. That doesn't mean a woman can never be stronger than a man, just that when you have men and women of the same relative size, the men will be physically stronger than the women. It's part of our sexual dimorphism, the differences between the sexes. Women can reproduce and nurse their babies, and men cannot. So we protect them. That's why we are stronger. But being stronger doesn't mean we should be in charge of everything. Might doesn't make right. In a civilized society, the measure of strength is not in its use, but in its restraint. It's having the power to hurt and using it to protect. That's why, barring genetic abnormality, all sons will grow taller than their mothers. It's an evolutionary way of ensuring that the protector sex will always grow bigger and stronger than the ones they protect. That doesn't mean women are weak. It's just that their bodies devote resources to other things. Women have a stronger sense of smell than men do. They can detect smells that we can't. This is why they steal our hoodies. They can smell us on our clothes, and they enjoy that. Their eyes can differentiate more colors than we can. It's not a matter of who is greater or lesser than, it's just differences. Men tend to handle the cold better, women tend to handle the heat better. Our differences are complementary. We work better together. But that balance has been disrupted, predominantly by capitalism, which created patriarchy, but also partly because of feminism, feminist movements, and the feminist scholars who direct them. Before I explain that side, I need to explain why capitalism is the cause and why patriarchy is just a symptom, because treating the symptoms alone doesn't address the cause, so the problem won't go away. It was roughly 500 years ago that capitalism started taking hold in Europe, which matters because Europe colonized the world. Capitalism solidified the concepts of private ownership and capital accumulation into our society. Prior to the private ownership of land, all land was essentially collectively owned by everyone. Monarchs may have ruled over it, but everyone could use it. It was called the commons. It may be the king's land, but everyone could hunt, gather, fish, or farm on it to provide for themselves and their families. It was called subsistence living. We used just enough resources to survive. It was essentially like pre industrial communism. The only means of production was the land itself. Capitalism changed that with the enclosure of the commons into private property and shifting the economic focus to excess production to sell for capital accumulation. Wealth building. Capitalism commodified everything, including us, and divided men and women into different commodity classes. Men had their gender roles set as production. We work jobs to generate excess value for the owner class in return for a wage. We work jobs, fight wars, and die. We give our blood for the economic machine because it is valued higher than our own lives. We are expendable. Women had their gender role set as reproduction. You give birth to new workers or future birth givers. Your ability for reproduction is also valued higher than your own lives. Capitalism did that. Because men could earn wages and women couldn't, this gave men power over women. Capitalism created patriarchy. But feminists would rather attack men for oppressing them instead of the capitalists that are oppressing everyone. In many ways, capitalism has sold women on their own exploitation by marketing it as empowerment. This is why I see capitalism as the source. It's the cause of the problem. But feminism has also contributed by steering us in the wrong direction and proclaiming it to be something that it's not. In the 1970s, there was the sexual revolution, where feminists fought for the right of women to not be defined as just sex objects, for the right to be more than just their ability to reproduce, which is absolutely valid and a just cause. Around the same time, there was also a men's rights movement, who likewise did not want to be seen as success objects whose only value came from economic production. They also wanted greater custody rights for fathers when families separated. The women's rights movement succeeded, the men's rights movement failed. Why? Well, the men would support the women because they saw in them the same struggle. But the women didn't help the men because they were fine with men's defined gender roles. And because greater custody rights for men meant lesser custody rights for women. Feminist equality, empowerment for she, but not for he. It wasn't just men they didn't care to help though. Have you heard the term identity politics? Do you know where it came from? It's attributed to the Combahee River Collective in a statement they made in 1977. The Combahee River Collective was an organization of black women, specifically African American women, and they coined the term to describe the political intersection of their identities, the sexual discrimination they faced for being women, and the racial discrimination for being black. In their experience, white feminists would accept their help in combating sexism, but didn't care to help them with racism. Likewise, black men would accept their help with racial justice, but didn't care to help them with sexism. Identity politics was about your identity not being represented, even when there are groups that should be representing it. I believe feminism has co-opted the term for themselves, perhaps because knowing the origin doesn't paint them in a positive light, or perhaps they've just learned a lesson from their mistake. Whatever the case may be, it's important to realize that identity politics has had its meaning misconstrued, and it has been weaponized to silence dissent. You're either a feminist or you're a misogynist. And if you're a misogynist, then you're just a bigot whose opinions don't matter and don't need to be listened to. Blocked. As part of my studies at university, I read literature by feminist scholars, and some of it is pretty twisted. Now, I can be fair and say that not all feminists are like this, but how do feminists respond if you say, not all men? It's no wonder why feminism has the reputation for hating men. They seem to divide everyone into either categories of oppressor or oppressed, victim or perpetrator. And of course, women are always the oppressed victims and men are always the oppressor perpetrator. Let's look at the words they use to describe the issues they see, because it's not just patriarchy. Mansplaining, manspreading, man-interrupting. But feminists don't hate men, they just name everything they hate after men. Okay, how about a little thought exercise where we replace the word man with something else? Gay-splaining, gay-spreading, gay-interrupting. Sounds kind of homophobic, doesn't it? Jew-splaining, Jew-spreading, Jew-interrupting. I don't know, that pretty solidly sounds anti-Semitic to me. So why is it still okay to vilify men? Women are plus size, but men are overweight. Body shaming women is small dick energy. Yet the hypocrisy is seemingly lost. Historically, men have done some awful things to women. However, a 20-year-old man didn't deny women the right to work. A 30-year-old man didn't deny women the right to own property. A 40-year-old man didn't deny women the right to vote. Why are we held responsible for the sins of those who came before us? We can acknowledge the past and try to do better going forward, but we cannot undo what was done. Why are we blamed for the actions we didn't do that occurred before we were even born? Is being born with a penis the feminist equivalent of original sin? I believe all people are equal in value as human beings, but not equal in capacity. And as such, a truly equal society is not something we may ever achieve. Trying to get the balance right is something we need to be eternally vigilant about. No one side can have all of the rights and none of the responsibilities. No one side gets to determine what is or is not a valid perspective, or gets to choose which narrative is considered the truth. That is a recipe for endless conflict.